Joining us right now in a Fox Business exclusive is John Mack, Morgan Stanley Chairman Emeritus. John, it's great to see you again.
Maria, good to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
From your days of running Morgan Stanley and Credit Suisse and First Boston,
right.
You are a true veteran in business. Let me ask you about the broader economy right now and how you would characterize it.
Well, listen, I think clearly in the U.S. it's growing. There's no question about that. And I think the Fed has done a great job in doing that. You do have job growth, without question. You have slower wage growth. But I think the U.S. economy is doing well. It's kind of leading the rest of the world. There's a view out there, without question, that we're going to raise rates. I don't know when. Most people say September. And I think any raise in rates has to be very small because it's still a fragile economy globally. And I think it would impact the U.S. But I'm very positive on our economy.
We got the CPI out just a moment ago. It's up 0.1%. We've seen this huge sell-off in commodities, partly because of what's going on in China.
Right.
You were one of the early ones in China years ago in terms of recognizing the growth story for the world. Do you think this is part of the reason we're seeing this sort of sluggishness is because of China?
Well, it's two things. Clearly, that's one of them. I mean, look, outside of the United States, growth has been very slow. China has been a huge consumer of commodity products. But more importantly, you know, I sit on the board of Glencore, which announced their earnings yesterday. Their stock is off about 40% from when they went public. And you look at it, what's happened, well, you've had a global slowdown in the world economy. But at the same time, producers keep producing. So it's interesting with the glut in oil, in iron ore, in coal, in copper. People just keep mining it. So it's going to take a while for that to catch up. And we're a ways away, I think, from seeing a real global turnaround in the world economy.
You're on boards, and I know you spend a lot of time looking not just at larger companies like Glencore, but also on smaller startups where you're seeing real growth. Where would you say is the most growth, whether it's health, whether it's sectors or geographies? What do you point to in terms of where the dynamism is?
Well, I think the dynamism is clearly in the tech sector more than anything else. And that could be healthcare tech. It can be just straight technology and business. If you look at a company which I've been involved with and on their board, Lending Club, peer-to-peer lending, it's changing the way loans are made to consumers. And now you have On Deck. You have others who are doing the same thing. I see a lot of growth. If you look within the financial service sector and you think about robo-accounts and how that's going to change the interface between investors and the brokerage business, is that going to change the paradigm that we have today? I think over time it will. It's
totally a new world in terms of financial services, and I'm glad you brought up Lending Club, because part of the strength that we're seeing for folks like Lending Club and On Deck and these other financing companies is Dodd-Frank. So the regulatory environment has changed the financial services industry entirely. Is that a good thing? What do you think about Dodd-Frank? Or is there too much regulation holding companies back?
Well, I'm not going to go there on all those things, but let me just say this. Clearly, we needed regulation. We needed more focus on the leverages in the system. If you go back to the meltdown in 2008, a lot of it was caused by leverage. But then ask the question, why did we have so much leverage? The traditional investment banks, whether it's Goldman Sachs or Morgan Stanley, whomever it may be, the only way they could compete after Dodd-Frank, after Glass-Steagall, was to take their balance sheet and put a lot of leverage on it. They did not have deposits. You've seen recently that Morgan Stanley, I think, has like $150 billion in deposits, maybe more. You saw that Goldman Sachs just bought GE's business where they'll have deposits and growing their deposit base. So I think a lot of that is very positive long run. I think clearly we needed changes in our regulatory environment. My concern about Dodd-Frank, and again, let's preface everything, I'm a retired guy now.
Yeah.
But I would think it's taken liquidity out of the market. And, you know, I don't know if you should talk to James Gorman or Larry Fink or whom you should talk to, but I think that's a real issue. Yeah,
and Larry Fink has been very vocal about it. A number of people, actually, Jamie Dimon, writing an op-ed that liquidity has suffered as a result of the regulatory environment. Okay. Which candidate has the best plan to get things moving again in this economy? A couple of months ago, you were on with Neil Cavuto, and you talked very positively about Hillary. Let's listen to this.
Do you have a candidate?
I'm a flexible person. It's not by party. I voted for President Obama in the first election, not in the second. I supported Mitt Romney. I'll be supporting Secretary Clinton.
All right, so you still stand by her?
Absolutely.
All these problems notwithstanding?
Everybody has problems.
Everybody has problems. It does seem that her problems are getting worse, John, with this email scandal. You don't think it's going to impact? What is your sense as somebody who's on her team?
Right.
Is she answering the questions right? Is she dealing with this right? Should she be playing this down more or just being a little more straight?
Well, I think she is straight. I do think the press, and some of it is affiliated here, have been really harsh. Every day you pick up something and read about an email. As I see it, a lot of these things that I've read about, they were not classified, and now the Justice Department or the Defense Department or the State Department is looking back, should we classify them? I think it's just a series of issues that people want to bring up, and it's politics. So you go back, 3 months ago, all we heard about was Benghazi. Now you hear almost nothing about Benghazi. It's about emails.
Right.
Who knows what the third leg is going to be? But I think what we're going through is politics, and I think people are spinning a lot of facts, and not just on her, clearly on others. So I'm confident. Look, the way I made a decision, who do I support, is by looking at their record. I thought she was one of the best senators we've ever had since I've been in New York, and I've been here for 50 years.
Wow.
She's very responsive. Look what happened at 9/11, how she went to bat for downtown and got $25 billion, along with other senators and elected officials from the state to help this city come back. I think as Secretary of State, people criticized her for traveling too much and on the plane too much. Her job was to execute the policy set out by the president. I think she did that.
Did she put this country in a vulnerable position in terms of hacking into important files of the USA because of her home server?
Well, you may have more information than me. I don't know anything about how much information, and I don't think anyone knows yet. Let's wait until all the facts are out. This is politics.
Bottom line, you're a supporter. What is the most important thing you would advise Hillary to be talking about? What's the most important issue from business standpoint?
Well, I don't think you can define it as one or two issues.
Okay.
All right. From business, I think the U.S. still needs to be a leader on a global basis for trade and commerce and doing the right thing in business around the world. But also, I'm very concerned about safety in the world, about terrorism. Look, we're going to solve. It'll take some time. We'll solve the immigration issue. We're focused on education as we should be. But the important things are global issues, whether it's safety, whether it's environment, whether it's a global economy that gives opportunities for people around the world to grow and to build and create a life that is a life that they should be living. What's
your sense of these markets right now? I know you are retired, but
right.
You've always had that trading and
Sure.
that trader fire in your belly. What's your sense?
Maria, I like the markets, but I'm really invested in small startups. I love working with young entrepreneurs. I think technology is going to change everything we do, and I'm turned on by it. And I learn a lot from these young men and women.
And as we all do. John, great to see you today.
Good to see you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.